Good morning, and welcome to my corner of the multiverse. This is the Salty Goddess Podcast, and I am Margaret Perry, your hostess. Get ready for your hump day guilty pleasure, but please be sure to share, subscribe, and download. Check us out on the web and all of our social media platforms where you can comment and direct message and let us know what's going on and what you'd like to learn about or hear about in our upcoming podcasts. So, my corner of the multiverse is getting colder and colder these days, my friend, as the sun doesn't spend nearly as much time warming the surface of my world as it used to. Oof, don't like it. I'm missing my 88-degree weather here in beautiful South Carolina. So I received a couple of requests after we did our sew-in or Halloween history podcast, asking if I had any other historical topics I'd like to discuss. So recently I became ordained as a minister or an officiant. Technically, my title is goddess, believe it or not. And I've been bestowed the power to marry couples, baptize babies, be an officiant. Oh my gosh, I can't even speak English today. For a funeral or a house blessing, and even for exorcisms, which I think is really kind of creepy and not anything I'm planning on doing anytime in the near future. So I figured I would start to talk this week about the history of some of the traditions that we undertake in weddings or the run-up to weddings. So let me start with courtship and asking for a dad's or a parent's hand in marriage. So we traditionally did this because it was ownership, truly. You had to get permission to basically transfer the ownership of, it's usually, a heterosexual relationship, and it's a man wanting to marry a woman, and dad owns the daughter, and he's going to transfer that ownership over to the husband. Doesn't that sound creepy? Like you just went out to buy a car or a house, because you get a deed, or a boat or a camper or some shit like that. But that is the reason why you asked for her hand in marriage when you asked the dad, which is also the reason why it's the woman who changes her name and not the man traditionally. Okay, because you go from being owned by your dad to being owned by your husband, and that is now your identity. Okay, so until the 1970s, a woman wasn't allowed to have a bank account or a credit card without permission from a man. Think about that. The 70s, 1970s. My friends, that was after I was born. Okay, that's wild to me. I cannot imagine not being able to open a bank account in my name without my dad's permission. And I'm 57. I would still have needed his permission. Or another male in the family. I mean, my daddy died when I was 20, so I'd have to ask my brother to open an account for me. Sweet goddesses above. No way. Yeah, so that's just one of the ways in which we talk about ownership. And that continues throughout the course of the ceremony. So, we have the tradition of walking a bride down the aisle. Usually it's the dad, but it can be any male. This is in the past, right? This is historically. I don't mean today. But that walking down the aisle was a transfer of ownership from my house to yours. So from dad's house to the husband's house. Now, today it's the perspective is shifted a little bit, and the light that's shown upon that is more like, oh, this is her moving from her unmarried life and transitioning into her married life. That sounds real sweet and lovely and everything, but just understand where it came from. And normally, or I shouldn't say normally, but sometimes it's an arranged marriage. So dad had to kind of grab hold of her arm and force her down the aisle. Isn't that wild? Then you get to she coming down the aisle, she's wearing a veil. That veil covers her face. Her face remains covered until the point in the ceremony where the official or officiant says, you may now kiss the bride. And the groom lifts the veil. And sometimes this is the first time he's laid eyes on her. Ain't that wild? Could you imagine that? I can't. I won't even buy a car without seeing it first and sitting in it, kicking the tires, starting the engine. Like, what? No way. That bitch better have heated seats, a heated steering wheel, electric seats, right? Yeah. And a good stereo, or I'm not buying it. Okay. Seriously though, sometimes it's the first time. And then when you get to the altar, the officiant asks, who gives this woman in holy matrimony? What do you mean give? What do you mean give? Again, another transfer of ownership signal. All right. So as we bring on these traditions, just understand, you do them, you may not understand what they used to mean. And of course, today they don't have the exact same meaning, right? Because we don't recognize ownership of another human being here in America. Okay. But I mean, it was abolished. Okay. But that is why it was done. So keep that in mind. When you had bridesmaids and they were dressed similar to what the bride was dressed as so that they could be decoys in case somebody wanted to kidnap the bride. What? Yeah. Maybe someone who lived in her village and was in love with her and didn't want to see her marry Joe Blow from a couple other villages away. I don't know. Right? Because sometimes these marriages weren't love matches. They were arranged. Or, quite frankly, they were made to strengthen alliances or build wealth. And it was usually strengthen alliances for men and build wealth for men. And listen, just so everybody is perfectly clear, gentlemen, if you are listening in, I am not ragging on you men, because I'm going to tell you something. Y'all got screwed too, just as much as a woman did. And I'm not here to hate men. Okay? That's not my shtick. I'm just talking about the ways in which people bring on these traditions and they don't understand what they really mean, or they don't understand where they really came from. You know, I was speaking to one of my sons, and one of my sons was talking about, you know, when his daughter gets married, and he starts talking about some of the traditions and this stuff. And I said, well, you know what, that's why we do that, right? He was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? And I started to explain it to him, and he was like, what? Really? Yeah, really. And then I thought to myself, well, shit, if he don't know, bet a lot of people don't know. And then I got an email that said, hey, do you have any other historical things we should know about? Like that stuff about Samhain or Halloween was very interesting. So yes, I'm like, oh, you know what? Became inefficient. Let me lay out a couple of these things so that people can know the real reason why or where these traditions came from. And listen, if this is what you choose to do, friends, listen, do it. I am not judging what you decide to do. Not at all. Because I don't care what you do. And you shouldn't care what anybody else thinks that you do. But if you like to learn a little bit, I just got these little tidbits of information for you. All right. So let's talk. We said giving away the bride. Again, it's title, ownership, transfer of ownership. Walking down the aisle, changing a woman's name because, it's a holdover from a time when a woman's identity transferred from her father's house to her husband's house. Okay? Yeah. It's straight out of coverture, an English common law principle that states a woman's legal identity is merged with her husband's upon marriage. She couldn't own property, couldn't sign contracts, or have her own legal rights. Her name was symbolized by that merger. Okay? So just so you know, today it's still framed as tradition, and things of that nature. I still have my maiden name. After I got divorced, I took my maiden name, and I will never change it. I don't care if I get married 100 times. It's going to remain Perry. It's my dad's name. All right. But again, it's still meant to be ownership. All right. So I talked about bridesmaids and them being dressed to match the bride so that they could be decoys in case somebody wanted to kidnap the bride. Her own family might even try to kidnap her back if maybe the groom kidnapped her to begin with. Who knows? Anything's possible. Now, what about things like the groomsmen? The ladies lined up to the left. The bride was on the left. The groom and the groomsmen are on the right. So that they could be prepared to draw their sword if they needed to. That's why there's a best man, because he was the best swordsman next to the groom in case he had to fight off, other suitors or kidnappers or family members, boyfriends, whatever. Thank God nobody's carrying swords these days. I guess unless you're in the Marine Corps, but that's a saber, I believe. Now, bridesmaids, best men. Believe it or not, kidnapping the bride or marriage by capture is literally abducting a woman and holding her until her family gives up permission. What? That's wildness to me. Wildness to me. All right. Let's talk about, how about some of these vows that we got? What about love, honor, and obey? Obey. Again, legal doctrine of the coverture. The wife's legal identity is absorbed into the husband's. It's messed up because it's literally codified subordination. Love, honor, and obey. So in other words, whatever you tell me to do, I will do. And if I don't, what? They can lock you up, beat you up, throw you in a well? I don't know. Crazy shit. Right? So just know that's just kind of so strange to me that we do these things and we don't understand why. How about if anyone objects, speak now or forever hold your peace. And when they say peace, they mean P-E-A-C-E, not P-I-E-C-E. Okay? So they're not talking about your handgun or anything else that you might call your gun. Believe it or not, this line has its origins in canon law from 1215 from within the Catholic Church. And the idea was to prevent illegal or incestuous marriages. And I don't mean that you're in love with your brother. I mean that you don't realize that the guy you're about to marry is your brother because mommy or daddy were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. You get what I mean? That's what I mean. Okay? I'm not saying straight up knowingly marrying a sibling, People would be allowed to speak up if they knew of a prior marriage that hadn't been absolved by death, divorce, whatever. Okay. Blood relation, or even through coercion. If you know why they should not be married, speak up now. I mean, listen, Taylor Swift even has a song about it. It's called Speak Now. Listen to it. It's pretty good. She hides in the curtains of a wedding ceremony. Okay. So now, as time went on, it became dramatic flair. And there was like this hush that would fall over the congregation that was there for the wedding, but honestly, a lot of modern officiants, they skip that altogether. All right. Because who the hell wants your wedding to end up sounding like an episode of, Jerry Springer Vows and Vengeance edition? And it's not legally necessary. It's just not. All right. So we don't want any of that. All right. There are other things that are a little bit kind of whack about some of these, weddings. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. So it was actually a superstition talisman kit. And the blue was code for chastity and fidelity. It's literally a checklist to prove that the bride is pure and has money or fortune, right? If there's something old, that means there's things that have been passed down. Something new means there's money to buy more, and borrowed means you got friends. The blue was meant that she was a virgin. All right. So kind of wild. I don't know. It's just, oh, and why weren't we allowed to see the bride before the ceremony if you're the groom? Because in arranged marriages, they feared that either the bride or the groom would get cold feet. So they're literally treating, this like a transaction. And that's just kind of freaky to me, right? I mean, it smacks of human trafficking. If you were to just take it for what it is, ask me if you want, I'm going to give you 2 goats, a cow, 40 chickens, and a piece of land for your daughter. As human trafficking. So, and I get it. People say, well, they just wanted to be sure that he was going to be able to provide. No, because then he would have said, look, I have 40 chickens, 2 goats, this piece of land, and a horse. No, he was paying dad for the loss of his property, if you will, because now he's not going to have a daughter to clean house and cook and farm and whatever else they do, milk the cow. I don't know. I've never milked a cow. So that's just, it's just, ugh. It gives me I think I'm going to break out in hives. Right? So you think that your wedding is going to be like a fairy tale, but it sounds more like a bill of sale. That's not romantic at all. It's a sale. All right. So just remember, those are the 3 big controls that they had back then, which was ownership. So you paid a dowry or you got permission. Purity was displayed by the veil, the white dress, and a garter. And then property, the other control, it was handled through the changing of names and the wearing of rings. Now let's talk about those rings for a minute. Women wore the ring, not the men. It was a sign of ownership that she is taken, she is spoken for. And this is before engagement rings were a thing. Okay, because engagement rings did not come into play until like, I don't know, after World War II. Diamonds were not a thing. Diamond engagement rings were not a thing until World War II. It was a marketing ploy by De Beers, okay, and the diamond industry. Diamonds are not as rare as you think they are. And now, of course, they're lab created. So there's that. There are, when you think about it, diamonds just look like a piece of glass. Really. Sapphires look like blue glass. Emeralds look like green glass. You get the idea. So it's just a stone. And they didn't start doing this until after World War II. Now, I will tell you, they asked women, would you rather have a diamond ring or a washing machine? What do you think those women said? I'd rather have an automatic washing machine. But they decided diamond rings were the thing. So that's when the whole marketing play came out. Diamonds last forever, just like your love. And that's kind of wild to me that it's still hung on this long, given that so many marriages end in divorce. It's kind of funny. Or how, K Jewelers has every kiss begins with K and that kind of shit. Okay. Just a marketing ploy. And when you think about it, almost all the crap that we have bought into, milk, it does a body good, right? Dairy farmers did that one. It's all just marketing. I mean, and that's the reason why people think if they, pop open a Coors, that women are going to jump out of mountains in bikinis and be the life of their party. So, yeah, marketing. So, back to the ring thing. Women wore the rings, not the men. The men didn't start wearing rings until World War II as well, as a reminder of what was at home for them. But it was the women, right? But ancient rings, like Egyptians, they viewed the circle as a representation of eternity, no beginning and no end, which is, like how your love should be, right? No beginning, no end. It's eternal, forever and ever, right? And that the left finger or the left ring finger was believed to have what was known as a vena amoris, which was a vein that ran supposedly directly to the heart. All right. But in patriarchal societies, men didn't wear rings because they didn't belong to anyone. The ring was a public sign that a woman was spoken for. And again, as I said, it wasn't until World War II that men began wearing rings widely. So soldiers wore them as reminders of their wives back at home. Okay? Just so you guys are aware of these traditions. Now, friends, not every single tradition was meant to subjugate women or to, basically say that a woman's value had everything to do with her purity, her chastity, her virginity, because it doesn't. Okay? Not at all. But let's talk about flowers. The bouquet, for instance. Everybody thinks the bouquet is meant to represent, romance. A sweet smell of beautiful flowers and the beginning of love and bountiful marriage and all that bullshit, right? The bouquet started, believe it or not, as an olfactory shield. In the Middle Ages, hygiene was, let's say, sporadic, and weddings often happened during summer, where it's warm and humid. So brides carried herbs, garlic, and then later flowers to mask body odor, which is why it's held just above the pubic symphysis as they come down the aisle. And it was also meant to ward off evil spirits and disease. As time went on, Victorian brides made flowers fashionable, assigning symbolic meanings to flowers like love for roses and purity. There it is again for lilies. And the bouquet toss, that was just a new spin on another wacky thing that they did, which was guests used to try to tear bits of the bride's wedding dress for good luck. So they would toss the bouquet and run away so nobody could tear their dress apart. Also strange to me. I would never want somebody to tear my dress apart. So, lots of really interesting traditions, when it comes to marriages. And I say, listen, if these are the things you still choose to do, I say, do you. And don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. Choose what you want to do. It's your wedding. You two are the ones that are going to have to probably pay for it, deal with it, and live with one another. And the last thing you want to do is, like on your 5-year wedding anniversary and 10-year and 15, bitch at each other about all the shit that went wrong at your wedding. Like how much money you spent or all the crazy shit you did. So do what works for you. I will be handling a wedding coming up here soon. And it is going to be one of the most non-traditional weddings I have probably even attended, much less have officiated. There probably won't be rings. They're going to have their own vows. And they're just going to be dressed in everyday clothing. No special dress, no special suit. And they just want it to be comfortable. And you know what? I'm all about it. I love that idea. And they're like, oh, are you sure you don't have a problem with that as the officiant? I said, why would I have a problem with it? It's not my wedding. It's yours. You're the ones that will be making the memories. I will probably forget your damn names 20 minutes after I leave. So yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what anybody thinks. It's your wedding. You do traditions that work for you. You do what makes you feel comfortable. But it's also important to understand the historical context of some of the things that we do. Because everybody thinks that it's a fairy tale and it's all this great stuff, and they don't really understand why some of these things are taking place. And to me, that's kind of wild. Some of them I didn't even know. I just did it because that's the way it was supposed to be, right? So just think about that. Traditions, my friends, aren't sacred. People are sacred. Covenants, promises, vows, those are sacred. You keep and you do what honors you, your spouse, your relationship. Burn the rest in a big old pyre. Okay? Your marriage, your wedding ceremony does not have to be a bill of sale. All right? You don't have to wear white. You don't have to wear a veil. You don't have to exchange rings. And you sure as shit don't have to say love, honor, and obey. Simple. So, reclaim your rituals, my friends. All right? Burn down bad traditions. All right? I want to thank you guys for coming for another history lesson here on Hump Day for your guilty pleasure in my corner of the multiverse. Share this with anybody that you know might be getting married soon. Some of those bridal shows are coming up right after the first of the year, right? Because they're getting ready for the spring rush to get married. And let everybody know. Listen, did you know you can actually start off? And I learned it on this podcast. So make sure you share this. Download it. Subscribe. Follow. Hit me up on all our social media platforms. The Salty Goddess. And send me an email or a message and let me know what you want to learn about moving forward. And if you're getting married and you've done something considered non-traditional, I would love to hear about it. So I might be able to suggest some different things for any of my future, ceremonies that I officiate. So thank you all again for coming. Stay warm, my friends, because it's literally getting freezing cold out there these days. I'll see y'all next week. Have a wonderful day filled with opportunity. Thank y'all and see you next week.